Thanks for joining us. I'm Virginie-Anne in Whitehorse. Our top news this evening: after weeks of back and forth, a Nunavut judge ruled today that the media can name a man accused of adult sexual assault charges. Justice Christian Lyons says naming the man will not influence the jury pool for trial. However, the CBC still can't report the man's name because of previous reporting linking him to some charges that date back to when he was a youth. He is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. And meanwhile, Lyons says a youth complainant has asked for the publication ban on her name to be lifted, which the judge granted. The youth trial dates are now set for this December. Sad news out of the Yukon tonight. Margaret Commodore has died. She was a trailblazing Yukon politician and one of the territory's most prominent Indigenous leaders. She was first elected to the Yukon Legislative Assembly in 1982 as a member of the Yukon NDP. Over her years in office, Commodore held several cabinet portfolios, including health and human resources, as well as the Women's Bureau and Justice. She also made history as the first First Nations woman to serve as a cabinet minister in a Canadian legislature. Commodore was 93. Well, some people in Yellowknife and Nunavut are growing increasingly worried about a missing man who hasn't been heard from since the weekend. 28-year-old Johnny Jr. Ningyon was last seen in Yellowknife on Saturday. Friends and family and community members say they have not been able to reach him since then. The Inuk man is from Nunavut. He's described as being about 5'8", 150 pounds, with black close-cropped hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about his whereabouts is being asked to contact Yellowknife RCMP. While pressure is growing on the Northwest Territories government to ease the burden at the pumps. As fuel prices soar in some communities, some MLAs are calling for a pause on fuel taxes. They argue families are already struggling with the high cost of living, but the government says tax relief is not currently on the table. Devin Tredenik has the details.
In some NWT communities, the cost of heating fuel is now sitting at more than $2.50 per liter. That's according to the territorial fuel price data released Monday. And with the cost of groceries, transportation, and utilities already high in the north, MLAs say many residents are struggling to keep up. HO MLA Cheryl Yakalaya says the government should consider reducing or temporarily suspending fuel taxes.
People need fuel to get to work and keep their homes warm in the winter. Government cannot sit back while parents are stretched to the breaking point and children are growing up around that stress. Fuel relief should be on the table, including reducing or suspending the NWT gas tax.
Fuel taxes in the territory range from about 10 cents per liter for gasoline to 1 cent per liter for aviation fuel. But for now, the territorial government says those taxes are staying in place. Finance Minister Caroline Wozniak says the territory has to balance affordability concerns with the reality of its own finances.
We want to continue to do it in a way that we're not ultimately taking on more debt and putting that on the backs of our future residents. So, Mr. Speaker, absolutely will continue to monitor, we'll continue to keep an eye on it, and happy to make that commitment, just no change at this point in time. Thank you.
Wozniak says the rising cost of living is especially difficult for working families who may not qualify for programs like public housing support. She says the government is reviewing its financial relief programs to make sure they reflect the high cost of living in smaller northern communities. Devin Tredenik, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A summer camp that supported fostering adopted children across the Northwest Territories is on pause this year. For more than 2 decades, Camp Connections gave youth a chance to spend time on the land, build confidence, and connect with other children facing similar experiences. Northwest Territories Foster Family Coalition usually runs the camps, but after 23 years of doing so, the organization says that won't be possible this summer, and that's because of staffing pressures and funding challenges. Former Foster Family Coalition board member Chris DeWolf says the camp filled an important gap for northern families.
In the north, there's so many remote communities that a lot of kids don't get to experience going to camp for, affordability reasons, and especially foster kids. All of the kids benefited from going to camp because it was just an experience that they wouldn't normally get otherwise.
The territorial government says its funding for the Foster Family Coalition has not changed. In a statement to CBC News, a GNWT spokesperson says decisions about camp connections are made by the coalition itself. The government says it's now working with the organization to better understand what options may be available. And meanwhile, CBC spoke to another person who also worked at the camp. Storyteller and earth medicine maker Cassandra Blondin-Burt says the camp created a safe and healing environment for youth.
To have a camp like that, I think, is so imperative in the upbringing of our youth. And that space is psychologically healing, away from the home, next to water and with open sky, next to all of the plants and the medicines.
The Foster Family Coalition says it hopes to bring Camp Connections back in the future. A fundraising event is planned for June 26 at the Yellowknife Golf Club. While Yukon Wildland fire crews have responded to 2 separate human-caused fires in the Pelly-Stewart Crossing areas in recent days. The first fire, reported on May 17, was located 18 kilometers south of Stewart Crossing alongside the highway. That fire is currently under control. And now the second fire was reported yesterday and is currently burning at Needle Rock Creek on the Pelly River. Wildland Fire says it's giving the Needle Rock Creek fire a full response due to its location and dry, warm conditions in the forecast. And currently, neither of the 2 fires pose any risk to the public. Well, the Trondhekwitchin First Nation is marking another step toward bringing Indigenous culture and knowledge into post-secondary classrooms in Dawson City, and this time through a new partnership at Yukon University. The First Nation and Yukon University signed a memorandum of agreement yesterday. The agreement gives the First Nation a greater role in shaping how programs are designed and taught within its traditional territory, something outlined in its self-government agreement. The Director of Education for the Trondhekwitchin says Western-style education systems can sometimes feel intimidating or disconnected from Indigenous ways of learning, and this partnership is meant to help change that.
For Trondheim students, it's loud and clear, you belong here, this is your school. This is a school that is going to be shaped by your needs, by your nation's needs and desires around education. And, that was not the case for a very long time.
Beaumont says the goal is now to make learning feel more welcoming and culturally relevant for Indigenous students. While some international news now, Canada has officially told the United States and Mexico it wants to renew the free trade deal between the 3 countries. That recommendation comes as Prime Minister Mark Carney's trade minister visits Washington for talks. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, there's a lot of work to do.
With less than a month to go before the deadline to review the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement,
there's a series of issues, technical issues.
The Prime Minister says the Americans still have a number of unresolved trade irritants.
30 issues or so with us, more than almost 60, I think, with Mexico at current count.
And Canada wants to see sectoral tariffs hitting autos, steel, aluminum, and forestry products resolved.
There, we're looking to determine whether there's a possibility of a new partnership.
That possibility being explored by the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade in Washington.
The goals of this meeting is to be able to tell you how well it's gone.
Dominic LeBlanc face-to-face with his U.S. counterpart.
We have a giant trade deficit.
For their 3rd formal meeting since talks stalled over Ontario's anti-tariff TV ad last fall.
It's a tool of industrial policy. It's to be used carefully.
The discussion taking place as Canada becomes the first country to formally recommend a renewal in writing of the trilateral free trade deal for another 16 years.
It's frankly a good time to sit down and say, look, if there's one lever that we could pull in the United States to improve the economy, to bring down prices, and to be able to increase jobs and national security, it would be to renew the USMCA.
But it's unclear if the U.S. president sees it that way. Donald Trump and his ambassador to Canada are once again trolling their northern neighbor on social media.
The president is an exceptionally active user of social media. You probably can chart his usage of it. It's only gone up in recent months, and we're not going to respond or react to everything that he posts.
In his letter to Mexico and the U.S., LeBlanc says people in all three countries are counting on the timely completion of trade talks to not only secure their economic future, but allow them to prosper. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Major success this week for the world of medicine. A new experimental drug could mark a breakthrough in the fight against pancreatic cancer after doubling survival times for patients. As Christine Birac shows us, while the experimental drug is not a cure, it offers a new way to fight one of the deadliest cancers.
Rarely does a cancer drug get a standing ovation from scientists and doctors.
And we're all standing there in this massive room crying it was really quite wonderful. I just have to say that I'm still emotional about it.
For decades, metastatic pancreatic cancer has been one of the deadliest diagnoses. There's still no cure, but now there's new hope. American Debbie Orcutt has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. As part of a trial, she's been taking the new drug, daraxonrasib.
I knew my diagnosis was bad, so what have I got to lose?
In a newly published study, 500 patients were randomly assigned to receive daraxonrasib or chemotherapy as a second-line treatment. On average, the new drug helped people live about twice as long as standard chemotherapy, about 13 months instead of 6 to 7.
It targets this mutation called RAS, which is driving pancreas cancer in over 95% of the cases, and it was thought to be undruggable.
You can think of RAS as a family of genes that make proteins acting like on-off switches to control cell growth. In pancreatic cancer, one of those switches gets stuck in the on position and keeps telling the cells to grow out of control. Daraxonrasib works by blocking that broken switch, effectively cutting power to the cancer.
Let's go.
Orcutt was diagnosed 2 years ago. The drug appears to be working.
Believe me, it's not lost on me. I just feel like God's given me another chance. You better make the most of it and do all good things.
While found to be less toxic than traditional chemotherapy, common side effects of the new drug are blistering skin rashes and mouth sores.
And some concerns about the side effects, because the side effects do look like it's going to take a lot of learning on our part as well. Are people going to afford it?
There is no price tag yet, and the drug hasn't been approved by the FDA or even submitted to Health Canada for review. But Canadian doctors we spoke with say if all goes smoothly, patients could have access to it in about a year. Christine Birac, CBC News, Toronto.
An iconic trail in Northwest Territories remains closed because of growing safety concerns. Officials say severe erosion along the riverbank has made parts of the Twin Falls Park Trail unstable. It's been closed since November last year, but officials are re-upping the notice to visitors to prepare accordingly if they plan to visit, and to caution those who are still accessing the trails despite the closure. Twin Falls Territorial Park is located about 50 kilometers south of Hay River. The 5-kilometer trail offers views of Alexandra Falls and Louise Falls, two of the territory's most recognizable waterfalls. The trail also follows a historic portage route used by Dene hunters and travelers once upon a time. Over the years, visitors have been able to learn about the area's cultural and historical significance. Kathy Le Pen is the South Slave Regional Superintendent for the Department of Industry, Tourism and Investment. She says there's no set date when it will reopen, but work is underway to assess when that may be.
I'm anticipating a solution, and we'll see what comes out of it. And I'm hoping to be able to open up a lot of the trails and different areas once we have the geotechnical completed. So hopefully for August long weekend. I can't make any promises, but that's my hope.
A small section of trail above Alexandra Falls was not damaged, but that's also temporarily closed because of high water levels. Meanwhile, the nearby Escarpment Creek area has also been closed for wildfire remediation work. And despite the closures, bathrooms and picnic areas are at both the Louise Falls campground and the Alexandra Falls rest stop remain open to the public. Forest tent caterpillars, while native to North America, can be nuisance in large numbers. These insects can strip the leaves off the trees they are infesting, and Calgary residents are dealing with a serious outbreak this spring. The CBC's Terry Trembath finds out more about these unsightly pests and what to do about them.
A resident of Northeast Calgary took this up-close and personal video of the tent caterpillars in his backyard Thursday night. And this large cluster of them in the Northwest is just one of many posted to social media this week. But this video taken in the deep Southeast sums it up.
Ew. They're up in like the top of the canopy.
This arborist says he sees forest tent caterpillars at least 2 or 3 times a week.
They're one of the primary native defoliators, and once they get out of control, it's very hard to mitigate the issue.
He says the caterpillars mostly land on fruit trees, starting at the bottom and making their way to the top, feasting on leaves and shoots along the way. While healthy trees can handle a certain amount of defoliation, weaker ones are likely to suffer.
Over the course of a few years of something like this happening, will cause a tree to go in such a rapid state of decline that we can't save it.
Forest tent caterpillars are usually found in northern and central parts of Alberta, but one entomologist says outbreaks happen about once a decade. They can last up to 3 years, and this year it looks like they've reached Calgary in big numbers.
I've been here 22 years and haven't seen anything to this extent in this area. Seen satin moth outbreaks a couple of times, but forest tent caterpillar, not to this extent.
Fry says the best way to remove them are scraping the insects off and freezing them or using a natural insecticide. This horticulturist says the sooner the caterpillars are dealt with, the better.
What worries me is that if we're not vigilant and try to deal with them and eliminate them, we will end up with quite an infestation because they'll overwinter, they'll overseason, and they'll come back twice as much.
The thought of seeing more of these caterpillar clusters might be the motivation Calgarians need to get rid of them. Terry Trembath, CBC News, Calgary.
A traditional art form is making a long-awaited return in Cascade territory. For the first time in a decade, people in Ross River, Yukon are once again learning the craft of mask making from a master carver. Julian Green has the story.
Trust the process. That's what master carver Dennis Shorty says. Under his guidance, people have gathered here to eventually sculpt something like this.
You get that form and yeah.
Part of a year-long program, Shorty hosted workshops at his Ross River home, the whole event steeped in ceremony.
It's bringing people together, learn how to work together as human beings on Mother Earth, not just have animosity amongst each other. It's coming together, and the joy of carving, storytelling, teachings, all that. Whoever carves that mask, they put their own energy into it, they put their own thoughts into it, and their own style. That's what it's about. I'm just showing them the ways how to carve it and to take it from there.
The workshops are far from over. They run toward the end of each month for a whole year. Afterward, the chance to exhibit finished works at the Yukon Arts Centre. Julian Green, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Salt a bit dry.
All right.
Something exciting for Yukon basketball fans. A big game's coming to Whitehorse. We'll have the details ahead on Northbeat.
Looking for stories about Indigenous peoples from across the country?
We know where you can find them.
Zinez Hotier, my name is Edzi Ulevrin, and I'm Tahltan Nation and Takariwa Tlingit First Nation.
CBC Indigenous.
My name is Brett Forster, and I'm from the Chippewas of Kettle and Stony Point First Nation.
Creative.
Engaging.
Informative.
Grounded in First Nation.
Métis.
And Inuit communities.
You're back.
I'm back. Anything else going on?
Mom? Nope. Where have you been for the past 15 years?
On the run. You are done with all the crime, right?
Oh, yeah.
You were going to steal us a diamond. Are you going to be able to keep it together on this one?
I am nothing if not profesh. Don't make me use this. Hi.
This is Jessica.
Nice to meet you.
Jessica, she seems great.
We should all go out sometime.
I would love that.
Wild Cards on CBC Gem.
You know what they say, Crabtree? Happy wife, happy life.
What have you done?
Seems the city of Toronto has a paid killer on the books.
In order to solve a crime, we are going to need to commit one.
Local news is in decline, and this is bad news for all of us. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, because local news is big news.
Well, the countdown to the World Cup is on, and in the run-up to the big event, teams are pitching tents in places where they can live and practice while in North America. A resort north of Toronto will be home to the team from Panama. Lane Harrison looks at how it's a dream come true for its owners.
This is a soccer pitch, fit literally for the world stage. About an hour outside Toronto, nestled between a highway and 36 holes of golf. Soon, an official practice facility for the FIFA World Cup.
FIFA wanted the continuity of having the same sort of grass in different locations, regardless of whether you were a practice surface or you're playing at Toronto Stadium.
That grass at the Nottawasaga Resort will be base camp for Team Panama during the 2026 World Cup.
Honestly, an iconic moment in Canadian sports history.
And a part of family history. Decades ago, Dino Biffis' father and resort founder Lou Biffis came to Canada from Italy with a deep passion for soccer.
Before this was a resort, we were one of the very first nursery-grown sod farms in Ontario, so the field that we're standing on was our business as sod farmers back in the day.
And on that field, he built a pitch in the 60s, and soon the soccer world followed. Ahead of the 1994 World Cup, reigning champion Team Germany stayed and practiced at Nottawasaga, and other national teams have since.
They always look to us because we're so close to the city, away from city distractions, but have everything here on site.
And now playing an important role in Canada's first time hosting the Men's World Cup.
We wish he could be here to see this all come together, and it's just a moment in time that continues on his legacy and what he's helped put in place.
And the community is joining in on the excitement.
We're going to proudly display it.
With limited tickets available for nearby residents to come watch Panama practice.
We want them to have the opportunity to come out and see this firsthand.
After training at the resort, Panama will play its first game in Toronto on June 17th. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Alliston.
Big news for basketball fans in the Yukon. 2 professional teams will play a game this summer in Whitehorse. The Calgary Surge and the Saskatoon Mamba of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. And this marks the first time a professional regular season basketball game has ever been played in the Yukon.
Today is a special day for Canadian basketball, and it is a special day for Canada. We are here to announce something historic. The first professional basketball game ever played in Canada's territories. That is more than a milestone. It is a statement about where Canadian sport belongs, who it should reach, and what it can mean when we choose to bring opportunity to places that have too often been overlooked.
The pro game will be played July 3rd at the Tekini Arena in Whitehorse. The game is just one element of the league's time in the Yukon. Over the course of 4 days, players and coaches will also run camps, a 3-on-3 tournament, and take part in the Canada Day Parade. The Canadian Elite Basketball League has also committed to returning to the Yukon in 2027 and 2028. Well, brace yourself because the weather could get a bit funky over the coming months. The UN Weather Agency is warning that a potential strong El Nino could increase the risk of extreme weather.
In some regions, it is likely we will see heavy rainfall and floods. We can also expect an increased risk of extreme heat with higher temperatures and shifting precipitation patterns, adding further stress on human health, ecosystems, agriculture, and energy systems.
The UN chief says the arrival of El Nino is like pouring fuel on a fire of a warming world. And this year, the weather pattern is being driven by unusual warm Pacific Ocean. It'll add more heat and moisture into the atmosphere, bringing extreme heat waves or heavy rains. So hotter, drier weather can damage crops and food supplies around the globe. That is Northbeat for tonight. I'm Virginie Anne in Whitehorse. Thanks for watching. And remember, you can catch your news anytime. Just head to cbc.ca/north. Have a good night and be safe out there.